Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the main event. Let's get ready to rumble!
Y'all ready for this?
Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of From Corner to Corner. This is Sean here. I'm here with Adam, Neil, and Wes tonight, and special guest Caitlin is with us tonight. Woo-woo! Our new technical advisor or social media influencer. So all these TikToks you've been seeing here lately is at her discretion and her creation. So fun. Welcome to have that in. Tonight we're going to be talking about NBA free agency and NCAA realignment.
Two hot topics currently.
Yeah, and wasn't supposed to be the original topic, but like it's kind of one of those things we have to talk about what's new, right? And speaking of what's new, Adam, why don't you warm us up?
So, we're going to go around the corner, not just corner to corner. We're outside the box. Mm-hmm. So, we record on Tuesdays.
We do.
Sometime
Except this week.
It's Wednesday. We've kind of kept up with the sports headlines throughout the week. KD, we're going to talk about that later. We're going to talk about the realignment. Brittany Griner is terrified.
She is terrified.
And Baker Mayfield is free from Cleveland. Take it wherever you want.
Well, I think, let's talk about Brittany Griner.
Right.
Brittany Griner, if you don't know, is a WNBA superstar, okay? She plays in the offseason in Russia, which is my first point. Why the heck does she have to play in Russia? Because the WNBA doesn't pay their athletes comparable to the NBA. Now, with that being said, she still makes pretty good money in the WNBA, okay? She is, I would venture to say, the highest paid WNBA player.
She's probably up there for sure.
So, I'm not entirely sure why she feels the need that she has to supplement her income, but nonetheless, she does. So she went to Russia to play ball in the off season. $2 million a year. Breadman says $2 million a year. It's not a bad salary. Listen, they could pay me the Los Angeles Sparks or the Phoenix Mercury or whoever she plays for can pay me $2 million a year.
Side note, I'm surprised that they're, after the USA Soccer just did the equal pay for men and women, I'm surprised the WNBA doesn't sit down, have a pause, go on strike to make sure that they do the same thing. And maybe that's coming.
Well, that was one of the things that Neil and I talked about yesterday when I kind of brought this up is that where we're headed now? Because if they're not going back to Russia, that's for sure. And at this point, she might not get out of Russia.
Right.
I mean, Russia's smart. They want to trade. They want a prisoner swap. Of course, all we're getting is a basketball player back. They're wanting a freaking undercover agent, a spy. We're not getting a basketball player back.
It's not
exchange.
apples to apples.
Right.
No.
Well, and it's to piggyback off that, you have some of these other players who try to do this. Well, what she got in trouble for was she had a vape that had a vial or two of hash-ish. Not even sure it's 100% hash, marijuana, whatever. That is illegal in Russia.
But it was the THC part is
right.
What broke. It wasn't the fact that she had marijuana. It was the THC part
right.
that apparently was the illegal part.
And she's finding out firsthand that even prison systems, okay, they're crappy here in America, but at least you're still in America.
Right.
You're now a celebrity American that is locked up in prison in Russia.
In the middle of a war.
I can't imagine how scary that is.
Yeah.
Wes made a good point the other day. I'm not sure how much Russia is going to be willing to work with us because the war you just talked about, we have sent lots of aid to Ukraine.
Not to mention the fact that everybody's quit buying their oil from them.
So I mean, I think this is. I know that as of today, President Biden had received her letter because she wrote him a letter. He had received the letter, and he'd read it. Yeah. I think he spoke with Brittany Griner's wife about reading the letter, and that he's working on it.
Yeah,
I can't imagine this thing moves fast.
Well, in President Biden's defense, he cannot address this with just ease, because if he does, then we're going to turn around, and every time there's a famous athlete, a country is going to grab one of them, and they're like, well, this gives us a direct path to the president. So he can't really jump in there on that. Right?
It is a very touchy situation.
Yeah. And without getting political, right? Because that's not what we do. We're just talking about the actual thing that's going on right now. But you have a lot of people that are not defending her and are not feeling sorry for her, because she was basically the female Colin Kaepernick. She was kneeling at the national anthems, talked about how bad she
basically talked about how bad America was.
Right. And now all of a sudden, it ain't so bad after all.
She's found out quickly that, I may not agree with things that go on in America, but it's pretty nice over there.
Well, that's the great thing about America, is she has the right
to do the things
those things. People don't realize how great America is. Even though we all complain about these types of things, it's what makes America great.
Right, is that we have the right and the ability to complain about these things, and when we complain about them, we're not thrown in prison.
We talked about, during our conversation yesterday, Saudi Arabia come up, and we talked about what the WWE has done
for
women's rights in Saudi Arabia. 5 years ago, when they started going over there were no women on the show.
Right.
Because the women were not allowed to perform. 4 years ago, you wound up getting one female match. They were dressed from head to toe. Their heads weren't covered, but top to bottom, T-shirts, sweatpants.
Well, and they even had T-shirts on. They had long sleeves and T-shirts on over top that.
This past year, they were in wrestling attire, still fully covered, but it was wrestling attire.
Right, and now there was, I think 8 women were on the card this past time.
Yeah.
They're now on billboards in Saudi Arabia. I think that's one of the things, you can say a lot of terrible things about Vince McMahon. The things he's doing for women's rights in places like Saudi Arabia, that women are treated as property. You're not really a person. You belong to your husband. If you're not married, you belong to your father. You're property over there. So the things that the WWE is doing for women's rights in places like Saudi Arabia, I think isn't talked about enough, and it's great. But this to bring it back to Brittany Griner, I don't think this is a short-term thing. I think she's in for the long haul. I can't see Russia, coming off their asking price. And as you said, I don't think the United States can meet them, because then it becomes, who's over here that we can snag now, because this will get us directly to the president.
Perfect segue. Speaking of coming off their asking price, the Browns finally decided to go ahead and move Baker Mayfield.
I mean,
and the way I read it was a 5th round with a potential of a 4th, right?
It's a conditional pick.
Yeah.
It's basically a jug of Gatorade, like a cooler of Gatorade.
But the big thing is Carolina's picking up part of the pay tab.
Part of it.
Which they don't normally do, right?
They're picking, it's roughly $15 million, and I think Carolina's picking up 5, and Cleveland's going to pay 10.
I thought Carolina was paying 10.5.
I think it's flipped. I think Carolina's paying the smaller portion.
Well,
I'll double check while we're talking.
Carolina had to do this, right? Because if they, Carolina or Seattle, one of them two teams was going to start Baker Mayfield at quarterback. Now, Seattle is trying to sell it on the fact that they're okay with Drew Lock, but he's right now ranked number 30th out of the 30 starting quarterbacks in the league.
So it says real quick on ESPN.com, this is from Jake Trotter, ESPN staff writer. The Panthers will pay $4.85 million of Mayfield's salary. The Browns will pick up the $10.5.
Okay.
So,
I mean, that's a steal.
Well, yeah, because they get Baker Mayfield, a former number 1 draft pick, who automatically is their best quarterback.
Which, by the way, Wes, your comment on the app today about them doing
the commercials that he does when he's in Brown Stadium, he lives there technically.
Yes. Yeah.
What company is that for?
Progressive.
Yeah,
It's for Progressive. Okay. Yeah, they should show him in a moving truck and decorating the new Carolina
that
Panthers
would be
stadium.
absolute gold.
I mean,
it would absolute gold.
Yeah.
Well,
Progressive, we're full of ideas.
I was going to say, Progressive has a great creative team. They come up with some fantastic commercials. What's the impact of Baker Mayfield to the Panthers?
I think it makes Carolina a contender in the South.
Do you think so?
I do.
I mean,
Because other than Tampa,
other than Tampa,
Let me tell you, Baker's mad.
Baker's a dog.
Yeah, Baker's mad.
I love Baker.
he's a dog.
Dog.
He was a dog.
Did you
Now
hear
he's a
that
panther.
draw?
He's a dog. He's a dog.
No.
It's funny. Breadman and I have this ongoing joke about people being dogs. I call them dogs. He doesn't like people being. And then, of course, there's a former guy that played at Kentucky that now plays at Tampa Bay, unfortunately, that Mike Edwards. And when I say he's a dog about somebody, Breadman goes, well, you want to know who's a dog? And he sends me this goofy picture of Mike Edwards, and I hate it every time. I picture terrible things happening to Breadman every time.
Loves his Packers. Loves his Buccaneers, but hates
I hate
Mike
Edwards.
Edwards. Hates him.
But I will agree with you.
You got to throw last year out for Baker.
You do. I don't like Baker Mayfield. I think he's a turd. I will say, I think he has a winner mentality. Okay.
He gets it done.
I love Baker Mayfield.
Of course you would.
I love his attitude.
course you
I
would.
love his cockiness. I love everything about him.
What has he done in the NFL?
Nothing.
Nothing?
Well, he
He beat the Pittsburgh Steelers in the playoffs.
Okay.
First
Not
Browns
to mention
win.
the fact he broke the rookie touchdown record his first year.
Okay.
And he didn't play the full year.
What has he
doing
done
that.
since?
He's been hurt.
He had a torn labrum.
Okay,
on his
so this
throwing
is the
shoulder.
same argument that we had last week with Zion Williamson.
Yeah.
But you are saying that Baker's still a dog.
Baker's a dog.
I don't think so.
Carolina will win.
I'm
Baker's
just
got
saying-
a home for 1 year. That's all there is to it. He's got a home for 1 year, and he's going to be a backup after that.
Has something to prove.
I don't
And
think
he
so.
strikes me as the kind of guy that will prove it.
He had a lot
Now-
better weapons in Cleveland than he has in
I agree.
Carolina.
100%.
I agree.
The
I don't think
defense
so.
is a lot better in Carolina, but it all hinges on
The health of Christian McCaffrey.
Yeah.
I think DJ Moore and Christian McCaffrey are better than any weapon he had in Cleveland.
But that's only two.
Better than Nick Chubb.
Marshall,
Yes.
Terrence Marshall's going to be.
Terrence
he's going to
Marshall's
step
gonna be
up.
good. Robbie
And then-
Anderson's going to be good.
Robbie Anderson hates it.
Did Robbie Anderson go back to?
Yeah, he's in Carolina.
I did not realize that.
So, I will agree.
Robbie
it makes-
Anderson hates everything.
Past his prime.
I will agree that it makes Carolina probably the second best
Didn't they
team.
draft a new wide
It
receiver?
depends on
I thought that was Terrence Marshall.
what
No,
happens.
he was last year.
What happens in New Orleans?
Right.
They're definitely better than Atlanta.
Jameis is behind schedule.
But with that being said, Carolina without Baker was better than Atlanta. Atlanta's bad. Atlanta's bad.
And not only that, they've got Matt Corral just sitting there waiting.
Well, and that's what Baker's going to do. He's going to give him that time to wait. He's going to come back.
Matt Corral is in Carolina. I thought he went to Atlanta. Oh, Atlanta was Ritter, wasn't it?
Right.
Yep.
Desmond Ritter, who I think was a
And they
fantastic
did
pick,
not.
by the way.
They went in the draft. They went O-tackle, Corral, linebacker, edge, guard, and quarterback. No offensive weapons. As a young person, for a young offensive weapon, I mean, they've got DJ Moore, Robbie Anderson. They've got the Trimble guy at tight end.
Steve?
Steve.
Not Steve. He's at the softball field.
Oh, okay, gotcha. Different Trimble.
And then their defense is nowhere near what the Browns is.
I mean, they had a really good defense last year. The problem
And the
was they
defense is young.
couldn't freaking stay off the field
Yeah.
because the offense couldn't stay on the field.
The defense is really young, too.
Well, I will say Baker's success is going to hinge on how healthy Christian McCaffrey can stay.
100%.
I would
No
agree
doubt.
with
And
that. I would agree with that.
you have an injury-prone running back with an injury-prone quarterback. Doesn't spell success in Carolina.
I don't believe Carolina's a Super Bowl contender.
No.
But I do believe that Baker Mayfield will do everything in his power to prove the critics wrong.
The only thing I will say is this is the best quarterback that DJ Moore has played with. So
Crazy Cam?
and he's got all kinds of talent and has had no one to throw it to him. So that's the only.
And he's still one of the top
He
wide
still has
receivers.
no one to
Exactly.
throw it
Yeah,
to.
he is still. Yeah, I don't think
He
he's
does.
been
He
below.
He still has no one to throw it to. Matt Corral, maybe.
I agree. It's yet to be seen.
You
It's
know,
yet to
what
be
do you
seen,
think-
and he's.
What do you think it says about Matt Corral, though?
Well, I think the plan all along was Matt Corral to sit.
Yeah.
I don't think he
I
was.
think, well, and because Matt Rule had come out and said that Sam Darnold was the guy. Like, he still believed in, nobody believes in Sam Darnold, okay? Sam Darnold's trash. I think if Baker can take Carolina to 500, it would be a successful season.
I think they're on the edge of the playoffs.
I don't think so. But I think that would say more about how down the NFC is than how good Carolina is if they're on the edge of the playoffs.
Yeah.
Do you know who the real winner in all this is?
Tampa.
Geno Smith. Geno Smith's going to be the starter in Seattle. He's going to be. I've been preaching it all along. He's going to do it.
He's going to be the
Eventually.
starter, and he's going
I
to
think
play
Drew Lock starts the
for
season, though.
4.
I think Geno starts
I think
the
it's
year.
opposite.
I
think Geno's going to start, and then about 4 to 5 games in, they're going to go. Wow.
Pete Carroll has
Geno
said
is
Geno's
done.
the guy right now. He's ahead.
They're just tanking
Pete
to
Carroll
get
needs to go away.
They're just tanking to get a.
That's what they're
quarterback
going to do.
next
They're going to go get a top pick, and then Pete Carroll's going to be gone. They'll bring in a new offensive guy with a new quarterback, and
I can
it'll
see that
all be a rebuild.
year.
So, next topic. Do we have another topic? Is that it? That's the news?
Yeah, whatever you want.
And that's the way it was.
Now for
I
the
remember
rest
that.
of the story.
You probably do. You watch Walter Cronkite and his bushy mustache.
Black and white. Change the channel, son.
And that's the way. I like it.
Did you all have the TVs where you had were the remote control?
No.
We had things called remote controls.
Yeah, no. But,
Mo controls, as we say it here in Appalachia.
like the TV that I had in my room was black and white, and my dad would sit in the living room and hollering. You go in there, yeah, Dad, what's up? Yeah, can you change that over to channel 3? Yeah, Dad, I wasn't doing nothing. Kaboom, kaboom, kaboom. They only had 4 or 5 channels on the whole thing, and then you had the U.
Well, you had 2 knobs.
Yeah.
And so you had the 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 out here.
Yeah.
But then you had the one down here that had to 60 or 65, and the first one would go click, click, click. The other one would go like you're winding up a wind-up toy.
Yeah, I remember that. So,
I know.
I mean, we basically have had flat screens my whole life.
Look at the
Oh,
time.
we had a box TV.
I'm going to take a nap real quick.
Well, I mean, it is almost that time. My goodness. When you don't get here till,
Where's my
mealtime.
pudding?
Where's my pudding?
So, it's just a boys' club.
I like that pudding. I'm the EST of LWC, so it's fine.
Yeah. So, NBA free agency would be atrocious if we wasn't talking about Kevin Durant at all, because it has been the most boring NBA free agency.
Hey, real quick, before we
ever.
talk about Kevin Durant, have you ever seen that Joker without shoes on? His feet look like Fazoli breadsticks.
Yes.
I've never in my life seen a human being have feet like Kevin Durant.
I've never heard somebody's feet compared to Fazoli's breadsticks.
Look at Kevin Durant without shoes on. Tell me that Joker doesn't look like Fazoli breadsticks on his
What
feet.
size shoe does he wear?
Like a 47.
I don't know, but I think Caitlin and I found his shoe when we were on vacation.
Oh, size 17.
I mean, you seen a couple years ago in the playoffs,
Look at that.
whenever he shot that 3, had he not had quarter-mile long feet, his foot wouldn't have been on the three-point line, and it'd have been at 3.
That's true.
Yeah,
That's true.
he wears size 18.
I was pretty
Wow.
close.
18 in breadsticks.
Oh my gosh.
I'm telling you, dude
That's
has,
like 3 breadsticks.
dude has breadsticks. I'm going to find the picture. You all keep talking about Kevin Durant, and I'll find his breadstick picture.
Old Kevin Breadstick Durant.
Well, so where's he going to be eating breadsticks at? Because he's requested a trade, and I don't understand why that the Nets feel like they have to feel obligated. Oh my Lord!
Look at that. Where's That's not right.
It has to be the ankle, but
It looks like
my
it's
goodness.
hinged in the middle.
look at the ankle. It looks like it folds up and it meets his shin. He tucks them away at night.
Look, whenever we post this show on stuff, you're going to have to share those pictures.
Oh, the name of this show is Kevin Breadstick Durant.
I mean, look, yeah,
That's just stupid.
That is unbelievable.
it's not normal.
That looks like a hockey stick, actually. He's got hockey sticks for
Looks like a
legs.
butter cover.
What in the HE double hockey sticks is going on?
just holds his feet up.
Kevin Durant's
arm right here. Double hockey sticks. You're in.
Oh my gosh.
Shift change.
So-
That's my call.
So the Nets feel obligated to take care of Kevin Durant. Like, why? What's he done for them?
Well, so first question I have is, what changed? He chose Brooklyn. Is it that they're not committed to Kyrie, or is it because of Kyrie?
I think it's Kyrie's not committed to Brooklyn.
Well, I think he's come out and said that he would still like to play with Kyrie.
But Kyrie opted in, and it was not 2 days later. KD requested.
I think the opt-in by Kyrie though is just is a formality. Now he's opted in, so he's got guaranteed money. So whenever he gets traded,
By the way, he opted in on Twitter. Like nobody, like that's how the Brooklyn Nets found out. It's like, oh hey, did you all know that Kyrie opted in? Yeah, he tweeted it out.
Sean Marks is sitting there like, who by the way was a terrible basketball player.
Terrible.
And he's proving to be an even worse general manager. I'm like, how do you be such a bad NBA player and you're an even worse general manager?
He had a lot of personalities in Brooklyn that just don't work.
But it was never going to work.
No.
So the problem, I think ultimately Kyrie for Russ is the deal done because the Lakers are the only team that shows interest in Kyrie.
There was a story that came out today that apparently San Antonio's going to get involved. They're going to take Russ, give Brooklyn some assets, and then Brooklyn sends Kyrie to LA.
I would listen. I would pay money to see Pop and Russ together.
I'm thinking guns on the sideline right there.
Talking about a clash of styles.
Holy moly.
Because Pop is, but maybe that's Russ's thing. I said Wes. Maybe that's Russ's thing. Jimmy Butler always got a bad knock because he was supposed to be a bad teammate. Well, he was not a bad teammate. He just expects a lot out of you.
He just wants to win.
He wants.
He's got a lot of Kobe in him. When it comes
maybe
to that kind of stuff.
maybe Russ has a little bit of that. Maybe he's not a bad teammate.
Russ will go to war.
He just expects you to play a certain way. So maybe Pop and him might be a marriage in heaven.
Yeah.
And
But-
they did just trade both their guards, right?
They did.
The Spurs.
I mean, they traded Dejounte Murray for Gallinari, who then subsequently was released, and Boston picked him up, which is a fantastic move.
You know, the Spurs have not been right since they have not had a good point guard. You know, they went from who was before Tony Parker?
Okay. Avery Johnson.
Avery Johnson.
So they had but he was really good for that team, and Tony Parker was really good for that
You know,
team.
Pops liked to play me at the point guard, and then I went on to Alabama.
So he'd have to change his accent just to go to Alabama.
I think so. So I believe.
I'll cut that part out.
No. We need the Avery Johnson. So I think KD gets traded. The problem is KD, depending on who you talk to, is the top 3 at worst player in the league, probably in the world. Okay, so Brooklyn's just not going to give him away. They want to return, which is why some teams have kind of backed away. You mentioned the Toronto Raptors. They would have to give up some of those assets you talked about. Probably Siakam.
Yeah.
And maybe even Scotty Barnes. But apparently Scotty Barnes is their line. Like they don't want to come off Scotty Barnes.
So, you know, you look when you have to give up the package that it's going to take to get KD. Does it make you better? So, you know, in Miami, you know, they want, of course, everybody wants Bam. You know, I'll take Bam. Well, of course you'll take Bam. I think if he goes to Miami, which ultimately is where I think he ends up, but I think it's a Jimmy Butler swap. I think Jimmy Butler goes to Brooklyn. I think that's the only way. And he may take Tyler Hero with him.
And I don't think that makes any sense for Miami.
But I think Pat Riley wants Kevin Durant.
Because Miami is literally a shot away from the NBA Finals this year.
I mean, would you argue Kevin Durant's better than Jimmy Butler?
I don't know.
Yeah,
I mean, Jimmy Butler played insane in the playoffs.
Okay. I still think Kevin Durant's better than Jimmy Butler. And Tyler Hero was hurt the whole playoffs. So you take those two off, add Kevin Durant, you got a pretty formidable team there.
Yeah. Did Lowry resign or is he gone again?
I'm not sure.
Yeah.
But I've heard interesting teams. I've heard the Denver Nuggets are in play.
Oh, I mean, there's everybody. There's a new one today that said that he was interested in going to the Warriors. There was one to the Lakers. There's one to the Jazz. There's one to the Raptors. There's one to the Heat. I mean, it's basically we just talked about the Suns
and the Pelicans.
the Pelicans, the Spurs.
If you're the Pelicans, or if you're trading with the Pelicans, it has to involve Brandon Ingram, right? I mean, I'm not taking that. I'm not taking
or Zion.
They're not. I don't think they move Zion.
Not with that. Well, with the contracts already in place, they could. But they want to put somebody with Zion.
I think Brandon Ingram. If I could get Brandon Ingram out of New Orleans plus some picks, if I'm Brooklyn, I think I do that because Brandon Ingram's a stud.
That's the thing.
He's a dog.
He's a dog.
If the Nets are looking to totally rebuild, why wouldn't you just do it with the Jazz that just got 4 picks for Rudy Gobert last week?
But I don't think they want to rebuild. I think they want to try to maintain as best as possible. I don't think they. I think they have no intention of blowing it up because if they did, then I mean they would give Kyrie away for pennies.
Well, I was going to say they're blowing it up because they're looking to move Durant and Kyrie.
But I think they're hoping to get not just assets and draft picks. I think they're hoping to get players.
Well, I mean they have Ben Simmons that will maybe
apparently
play.
Healthy
Really?
this year.
But
he's apparently healthy.
Can he hit the bar outside the bar?
I was going to say he's a point guard who willingly set out all last year and doesn't shoot the ball. He has no place in the NBA.
Did you say today that? Did I hear you say today that Philadelphia was back? Was on the table for him too?
But they said it will have to be at least Tyrese Maxey.
Right.
Well, obviously more than. But adding Philadelphia. So Philadelphia is already loaded with James Harden and Joel Embiid. Adding Kevin Durant there makes 0 sense.
And that is why Kevin Durant and James Harden didn't get along.
Right.
I don't think Philadelphia is even in the running.
So
I don't know how they can afford him because James Harden took a pay cut to bring in a couple of key pieces that they felt like they needed. He's not going to like the fact that he took a pay cut and then Kevin Durant comes in the front
let me
door.
ask you this question. You keep hearing Boston's name brought up. If Boston were to trade for Kevin Durant, it would have to at least include Jaylen Brown, right?
Yes.
And I would do that in a heartbeat.
Would you?
I would get rid of Jaylen Brown and draft picks.
So
but not Marcus Smart's where I draw the line.
I was going to say, I think it would, to go to Boston, I think it would have to be Jaylen Brown and Marcus Smart.
Yeah, but you can't do that and picks, right?
No,
you can't.
No.
It's too much because Boston was too close.
And almost the most laughable one outside the Lakers, because I think watching Kevin Durant and LeBron James together would be the most hilarious thing going. It would be better than primetime television because they're two ball dominant players that the ball has to go through their hands. There's only one basketball on the floor. They're both going to get mad. And
did you see where the Lakers draw the line in their trade talks? THT, Taylor Horton Tucker. They said they wouldn't trade him, and that's when kind of trades broke down with LA and Brooklyn for Kevin Durant.
That's hilarious. But almost the more laughable one.
And they've given away every other role player and draft pick over the last 5 years.
The more laughable one to me was you hear the Golden State Warriors. They're not taking Kevin Durant back.
But they're the only ones that got the haul that Brooklyn wants.
I know.
They're the only team.
But I think you talk about drawing line at players. I think Draymond and Steph draw the line at KD. We can trade for anybody else. I ain't trade for that guy. Because I don't think KD likes to play the way that Draymond and Steph play.
Yeah.
And, I mean, there's already been beef between the two before.
Which I told him the other day. I said, hearing what I've heard, like, Like the Warriors just won. And they're already getting, pushed back going, oh, well, they wouldn't have won if Milwaukee had been healthy. But, Milwaukee, dude, they were 2 rounds in where they lost. I'm like,
Chris Middleton was hurt.
Yeah.
He was a key player.
He is. I told him, I was like, this is not me jumping on the bandwagon, but I'm 100% rooting for the Warriors just because it's like no respect whatsoever for what they've done over the last 8 years. It's like, it's almost to the point of where Michael Jordan retired for 2 years and someone else won. The Warriors team was hurt for 2 years and somebody else won. But, they've been in 6 finals in the last 8 years, and the 2 years they weren't there was everybody was hurt. And I just think...
Well, are we close to the Kevin Durant saga being over?
No, because one of the reports I just read talked about the Nets are not thrilled with the packages that they're getting from these teams. So it's very possible they don't get anything that they want. They'll ship Kyrie out, and they'll just say, Durant, keep playing. You're under contract.
Well, where they're trying to accommodate him, I think it's kind of that point. It could get to the point going, look, Kevin, we want to take care of you, but nobody's offering anything that's worthy of shipping you off.
Right.
It surprises me that a team like the New York Knicks haven't tried to jump in.
They don't have anything. They're like the Lakers.
They got R.J. Barrett.
They got R.J. But you could package Barrett with like Randall's contract.
Yep. Or Mitchell Robinson even.
I like Mitchell Robinson.
I do too.
Do you know that he was
the first?
He's the first draft pick in I can't remember how many
28 years
that has
signed
a
the second
contract with the Knicks.
Yep.
How poorly is that team ran?
That tells you how bad the team is.
I'll be honest with you. There's only about 4 or 5 teams in the entire league that are ran accordingly.
But
the Celtics, the Warriors, the Heat. Looks like the Bucks have their head on straight. The Raptors seem to be pretty good at it. That's about it. Portland's awful. The Lakers are awful. The Clippers just want to spend money on players just to be doing it. Everybody thinks that they're going to win just because Kawhi's hurt. Man, they ain't been crap since they put that team together out there.
We kind of went over that with our contract episode.
Yeah.
And how poorly ran teams are.
Yeah.
Not just in the NBA. It's a lot of, Major League Baseball's got a lot of them.
Yeah. So I got a question for y'all before we move on. When the dust settles, where do you think Kevin Durant ends up, Adam?
Toronto.
Phoenix.
You mean go over the teams in the NBA again?
No.
Are you forgetting?
I honestly, right now, I think he stays with the Nets.
I think he ends up in Miami.
And Kevin Durant is so soft. He's not going to go to a team that's going to get bad publicity. He's soft.
Well, he is soft, but he also is ring chasing. So he's going to go to a team that is going to put him in an opportunity to win.
If they'll pay. That's why I think the Suns have a great opportunity because they got to get rid of. They got to get rid of Ayton,
which I don't understand. It blows my mind why they have to get rid of Ayton.
But
they're going to have to sign him first.
Is that the Bridges that got in trouble, or is it the one from Charlotte? Okay,
the one in Charlotte's done.
Yeah. Day before he becomes an unrestricted free agent.
Yeah.
Absolutely beats up his girlfriend.
Yeah. So Bridges and Ayton and some picks, I think, brings KD to the Suns.
My question there is for us to marinate on this. Does that really make Phoenix any better?
I think so.
I think so.
Do you think so?
You got to have somebody though coming that's going to replace Chris
Booker.
Paul.
Can't be the only one to hit shots, and it seemed like
gosh, he was terrible though that last series.
Well, yeah, but when Chris Paul turned 37 years old in the series, it's like he was a different person. It was so funny.
Father Time's undefeated for a reason.
He is. Yeah. And that's what we say about all these great athletes that stay too long. And I'm afraid Chris Paul maybe has stayed too long.
Yeah.
I think his best basketball is probably behind him.
I think he probably should have walked away when Phoenix lost in the finals.
Yep.
But you better believe, this is his last year in Phoenix, right? His contract's up?
I think so.
You better believe that he probably plays at least one time with LeBron.
Sorry, I'm watching Wes fix his bifocals.
Try to read
out the bottom.
Listen, I'm not going to bifocals. That's the last thing I'm doing. I will lift my glasses up until I am 80 years old.
Well,
not
putting
putting the line in my glasses. I'm not doing it.
The unveiling of the new logo. What do you think?
I think it's pretty great. I think that's pretty great.
That's solid.
Let me take a gander at that.
I have to get this part out.
No, I think you leave
No,
it.
you gotta leave it.
So
Live reaction.
Just give a overall what it
Look
looks
at that mug.
No, that can't. You gotta save it.
Oh,
Gotta
we gotta
save
do an unveiling.
Look at those two together.
Look at that stud that's right beside of you.
I know. Sean does look good.
Goodness. What?
Sean looks good there.
I like my hair.
And your beard has never looked that glorious. I'm just letting you know.
It's never looked
glorious. In granted, it looks fantastic.
better. Absolutely.
It's funny because I really didn't know what to expect.
That's great.
So he managed to put together
Just
more
say
than
who.
what I thought.
Say who.
Doug Halliday.
Roy's brother.
Yeah, he is. It's funny. He's from Canada. From Canada.
From Canada. He's Canadian, eh?
Yeah, he's from Canada, eh?
You found him in your Roosevelt's group,
I did.
and he is an artist for WWE and some other.
He does all
stuff.
kinds of artwork.
Yeah. So
When he's not at Tim Hortons.
right,
Horton here's who?
right. He's had a rough week or so, but Doug, it looks fantastic, and we cannot wait to unveil our new logo.
Coming in 3 short weeks. I mean, I totally, in that picture, look, you can totally tell that I'm 260 pounds of twisted steel and sex appeal. Katie Crouch over here, she dumbfounded. She doesn't even know what to think.
She has no words right now.
No words.
And for all of you out there who have teenage daughters, that's hard to do.
That is hard to do. She's speechless. Utterly speechless. And red in the face.
So, on to the main topic.
The main event.
No. So, the USC Trojans and the UCLA Bruins are going to the Big Ten.
Because the Big Ten has California love.
Now, here's the funny thing. I heard somebody earlier in the week say that USC is going to the Big Ten. UCLA is following.
100%. They're riding coattails.
Yeah. So, we are headed towards 2
Super conferences.
super conferences.
I heard Kirk Herbstreit, who, by the way, has the greatest job in sports. All sports, not just college football, all sports. He gets to talk about college football all week long and gets to call the best game of the week every week. Mm-hmm. I'm sure he works from home a lot. He does a lot of research and all the time into it. Dude's on the road like 3 days. And he gets put up in 5-star hotels for a guy that's never done anything other than play at Ohio State. Now listen, I'm not knocking the guy because I'm sure it's very hard to play at Ohio State. I've never played at Ohio State. But Herbstreit, you would think the way that people treat and talk Herbstreit, that he is like a Heisman Trophy winner. It was like won the national title at Ohio State and all this stuff. No, he didn't. But Herbstreit said he thinks we're going to 2 power conferences like the AFC, NFC, and the NFL. and we're going to essentially have NFL pro football on Saturdays and Sundays. That comes straight out of the Herbster. Herbie himself.
Well, it's headed to that way because you're gonna have some teams that are just left out in the cold, right? And it looks like Clemson might be one of them.
I don't think so.
Clemson's SEC bound,
but I was telling Wes today they have, and I could not find that word. Basically, there's an agreement that you're committed to the conference. That runs out in like 24 or 25.
But if the ACC adds schools, they can scrap that whole thing immediately.
They can
because the grant of rights or whatever.
The grant of rights. That's what I was looking for. So when the grant of rights is up, they apparently have to renew it like every so year. I guess it has something to do with television.
Yep.
So are you saying that if the ACC was to bring West Virginia and Oklahoma State in,
yep,
that the grant of rights goes away?
They could rip that up, rip up the TV contract, and come out with a new contract.
So here's what I think.
So that would be the opportunity for
Clemson and Florida State and Miami to bowl.
I think we are.
But like North Carolina's got to go too, right? Sorry. Just finishing the thought there.
Yeah, in the middle of mine. That's fine. Finish your thought.
I was just saying, I think North Carolina has to go too.
I think, let me piggyback off yours, I think wherever North Carolina goes, Duke has to go too because they're going to keep that basketball. They want that basketball game.
So, saying all that, and I was reading a little something before I came, I don't think and we talked about this, and we totally thought that Clemson and Florida State's going to SEC. I don't think any of that changes.
Well,
I think the ACC is staying together. They're going to add some people because not only are we talking about Clemson and Florida State and Miami, and North Carolina's been better with Mac Brown, Virginia Tech is the one that no one says, and they would be left out in the cold. They're too good of a school all the way around, football school especially, and basketball, they've been pretty darn good the last 4 or 5 years with – I think, no, Buzz is not there. Buzz is in the SEC.
Mike White.
Mike White just went there. That's
yep.
right.
That's a terrible hire. He's awful.
He does pretty good with them.
He's terrible.
But I don't at that point when you start talking about those football teams, I think the ACC is your other super conference, along with the Big Ten, along with the SEC, along with the merger of the Big 12 and the Pac-12.
So here's what I think happens, okay? I think there's not going to be any major moves for a while. I think the Pac-10 is going to scramble and add 2 teams to get back to 12. I think those 2 teams are probably Boise State and, let's say, Colorado State, okay? They're the 2 closest. They make the most sense. So let's add Boise State. I think if UNLV was better, I could see them adding UNLV to get into the Las Vegas market, but they're not. So let's say Colorado State, Boise State. Those are going to be the only moves, at least through football season. We're not going to even hear anything else about it. The next big chip to fall is going to be Notre Dame.
Yep.
Notre Dame makes a lot of sense for the Big Ten. But to piggyback off what Wes said, I could see the ACC make a huge push at Notre Dame to keep them, because I think if the ACC can reel Notre Dame in, then it keeps them a conference. Because then I think at that point, Clemson's like, maybe we got something here. I'm not leaving. Florida State doesn't leave. So then potentially if that were to happen, I think at that point, then you look at a Pac-10, Pac-12, Big 12 merger. You have the SEC. You have the Big Ten. You have the ACC. And basically each conference gets to 16 to 20 teams. And those are the only 80-ish teams that matter in college football.
Because Notre Dame at this point has to do something. They cannot stay independent. They're not going to be able to make a schedule year to year with super conferences because nobody's going to want to play Notre Dame as their other 2 as one of their other 2 games because they're going to go to 9-game schedules.
Right. You're going to play 9 conference games because let's say we were talking today. Let's say the SEC goes to 20 teams. You're going to have 4 5-team divisions inside the SEC. You're going to play the 4 teams in your division, And then you'll play another division. So you'll play 9 conference games every year. That leaves you with 3 out-of-conference games. You're not going to schedule powerhouses those 3 out-of-conference games. Mm-hmm. So
not if you don't have to.
Not if you want to make a bowl.
Yeah.
And so with that even being said, you look here locally, that puts the Kentucky-Louisville game in jeopardy because I can't see either team. I mean, Louisville doesn't want to. I mean, we've owned Louisville in football the last couple of years. They don't want to schedule Kentucky if they have to play 9 conference games because it's like, well, we need to schedule teams that we can beat.
Right.
So I think the biggest domino next to fall is going to be Notre Dame. If Notre Dame goes to the ACC, I think the ACC can stay intact. If Notre Dame goes to the Big Ten, which I think makes the most sense, because that's where USC goes, you keep the Notre Dame-USC rivalry together.
There's 5 teams that they have yearly rivalries with in
the Big Ten,
and then USC added to that. And then if somehow, some way, Stanford comes, that's another rivalry game.
I think if Notre Dame goes to the Big Ten, and I think Notre Dame – we find out what Notre Dame probably does in the next year or so. Because, like you said, they're going to have to, to either crap or get off the pot. Like, either you become a big boy and get in a big boy conference, or you become irrelevant.
Well, the money's they're not going to get the money.
Right.
I mean, they're going to miss out on conference money is what's going to happen.
So if Notre Dame goes to the Big Ten, then we're headed to 2 super conferences instead of 4 power conferences.
So, crazy thought. I heard this on the ESPN U radio station the other day. There's actually speculation that football in itself will be completely separate from everything else. All the conferences will stay exactly the same in every sport other than football, and it's just going to be football.
Well, and I mean, because it doesn't make sense. Think about it. How much sense does it make for Penn State's gymnastic team to have to travel on a Tuesday night to Southern California for a meet? Or the softball team to have to, it doesn't make sense logistically.
Well, there's already colleges, smaller colleges, that are cutting programs like that, or they're sticking them on a bus, or they'll be like, you can only go within X amount of miles to compete. And that cuts things out that completely.
Right. So, I mean, and when we get to limiting that, we're actually, with this new football realignment, we're looking at you not even getting to play every team in your conference, which is crazy to think about. But you think about like men's soccer, for example. There's not a SEC men's soccer conference. There's not. So like Kentucky's men's soccer team plays in Conference USA.
I did not know that.
Yeah. So
of course, not being a soccer fan, wouldn't.
So there are sports already that are kind of doing that because there's no other.
They actually just switched to the Sun Belt last year.
Did they switch? Okay. So there's already some sports that they're having to do that. So it's not crazy.
Yeah.
But football, as we've talked about for several shows, drives the bus. They make the money. As football goes, so does your university. But we're getting, and I think when this happens, and I think that's the way we're going. I think we're going to have football be a completely separate entity than the rest of college sports.
I mean, just in this case here, just what you said, football be totally separate. Kentucky's soccer team has to find a different, because they don't have SEC men, but they still say regional. They picked the Conference USA for many years because it was still regional. Then they moved to the Sun Belt this last year. It's still regional. It makes all the sense in the world for football to break off, still funnel all their money to the universities, but all the rest of the sports play within their region, within the Big Ten,
right?
Within their,
I would imagine that basketball would still travel.
I don't know. That would be interesting because
who wants Duke football
for a home game?
But I think you want Duke football so you can have Duke basketball.
That's what I'm saying, though.
Duke football's down. You also got to have some conference games that you feel like you can win.
Yeah. I mean, it's crazy to think that if the SEC goes 20 teams and you've got 4 divisions of 5, it could theoretically be 4 to 5 years before Kentucky and Alabama play each other.
Right.
and then another. I mean, it's just kind of crazy.
Well, so I think let's go with Wes's scenario that we stay super conferences or power conferences. So we'll keep the Big Ten, we'll keep the ACC, we'll keep the SEC, and we have the Big 12, Pac-12 merger,
which makes sense because it's logistically feasible
and
that they can travel to one another,
except for West
Virginia, and I think they break off. I think they could get into the ACC if they add in.
I'm going to say knowing Clemson's probably gone. As a West Virginia fan, I would rather stay in the Big 12, Pac-12 than go to the ACC.
And just travel?
It's a better conference.
So at that point, that's when we have, if they stay, if it's four power conferences, I think they go to 16 teams, 16 to 20, but let's say so that's 64 teams in college football. And they're going to do that's when we see a 16-team playoff come around. Whenever they break away, because football,
he was close on the votes this past time.
Football is going to be ran like what Wes said. Football is going to be ran completely separate. I think we get a football commissioner, and then we get an NCAA commissioner.
They've been talking about that for years.
It's really funny, but didn't they extend that next vote for the conference tournament till like 2024, 2025?
When the media deal runs out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Think about what else is going to be done by the time 2025 rolls around.
Texas and Oklahoma and the SEC, USC, UCLA, Big Ten.
Yeah.
Pasadena, California.
It's all
Big Ten country.
I mean, it'll all come together. 2020.
Right.
What'd you say?
If we would have said that 20 years ago, you're like, man, look at that. Can you believe? I'm looking for that USC Ohio State regular season matchup. Yeah. Man, USC going to Happy Valley for a whiteout? My God, man.
That's got to be a whiteout game.
Oh, but let's go to Pasadena. That's Big Ten country. We play Big Ten football over there.
Right.
What?
UCLA Rutgers, noon kickoff on ESPN2. Holly Rowe calling the game.
It's so bad. But, you see it and you're like, that doesn't make any sense. Like, why would anybody do that? And then you look at it and you're like, because now the Big Ten is stretching literally from sea to sea.
Yeah.
Now, teams like Ohio State and Michigan, Penn State were able to recruit sea to sea anyway because you're a brand. This helps your smaller schools. There's a lot of talent in California. There's a lot of talent out west that doesn't have the opportunity to play at a big school that could do an Indiana, a Maryland, a Nebraska.
NC State's a good football team too.
So I listened the other day on ESPNU, and they played college football Tinder. So he took, I think the host had 10 or 12 teams, and two guys. One guy played the SEC, one guy played the Big Ten, and you swipe left or swipe right. Listening to their logic, one of the teams that the SEC said that he would be interested in talking to was Arizona State. He said, you look at them sports-wise, they're a pretty solid program, but they're in Phoenix. That's a large market. So here we are talking about this, and we're kind of playing checkers, right? These school presidents and conference commissioners are playing chess. They're thinking moves ahead. They're not thinking, okay, well, it's going to Arizona State's not going to bolster SEC football. They'll be middle of the road at best. I mean, they're basically Missouri and Kentucky. But Phoenix is a ginormous market. Oregon. Who's going to go after Oregon and all that Nike money? That's a big market. You got up and comers like Utah, and then you got your schools like Duke and Kansas. Well, they're trash in football. Nobody cares about Duke and Kansas. But I mean, I know being a Duke basketball fan, I'd like to see Kansas in my conference for basketball. I'd like to see Duke in my conference for basketball because that's big money.
Yeah.
So,
and I mean, you got Oklahoma State floating out there too.
Oklahoma State is. I think Oklahoma State.
And what about Baylor?
Becomes the stalwart in the Pac-12, Big 12 if they stay together. Like I think they teams like that is who they hitch their wagon to, and it's like you got to rise and be the top dog. I told Wes, I said, what's going to happen is nothing's going to change until the college football playoff, the 4-team college football playoff. We have 2 Big Ten teams, two SEC teams. That's where we're headed. Mm-hmm. I mean, Clemson has a shot, but when the move of USC and UCLA, Texas, Oklahoma are complete, what school outside of the Big Ten of the SEC has a legitimate chance to make the college football playoff?
Oregon and Clemson probably it.
Well, that we've circled back around to Notre Dame.
And Notre Dame. So those are the only Washington maybe.
No, not anymore.
I mean, they've made it once. Okay.
Not anymore.
But so you have a hand out. So when this move's complete,
Cincinnati made it once.
That's true. And
Utah possibly.
But there's not many.
Yeah.
Most of your playoff teams are going to come from those two.
But everything we've just said all those teams we just said, they have to get into one of these conferences that are being aligned in the next 2 years.
Well,
they have to.
The one thing for sure is that if Utah or Notre Dame or one of those schools don't go to a conference, it's going to be virtually impossible for them to get one of those 4 spots in the playoff.
Well, that's why I come back
to. It's all
going
to have to align to like a perfect record.
That's why I come back to the biggest piece of all is going to be Notre Dame.
Yeah.
Where Notre Dame ends up, because I think ultimately and I think they know they have to choose. Where they end up is going to determine whether we have 2 super conferences or we're able to stick to 4 power conferences. Because if Notre Dame goes to the Big Ten, the ACC, Big 12, Pac-12 are done. Because the SEC and the Big Ten are going to absorb everybody that they want, and we're going to have 2 super conferences.
Not to bring up, but even if you have 4, regular conferences that we basically feed out of now for the football, there's still going to be a super conference compared to what they are now, because they're still going to add 2 to 4 teams by the time 2 years rolls around. So, I mean, you could easily have, it's not going to have 2 super conferences where you're going to have 24 teams. You're going to have 4 conferences with 20 teams. So I don't think it really matters, because we brought this up. You brought this up just a minute ago. It's not going to be 4. It's not going to be the final 4. It's going to go to 12, or it's going to go to 16. One of the 2.
I think
it's going to happen.
I think when it moves, I don't think it goes to 8 first. I think it moves from 4 to 16.
That might be the second.
Is more likely. 4 buys and then 8 teams playing down. Because they're not going to want to extend it another week.
Well, no. I mean, bowl season takes how long? 4 weeks?
Yeah, it starts, I think, December 18th or something like that, and it runs through January 6th.
So, I mean, we're looking at roughly 4 weeks. You could play a 16-team tournament in 4 weeks. I mean, it's no different than the regular season.
Right.
So,
I mean,
but that'll be the other bigger domino that's going to fall, other than Notre Dame, is Notre Dame goes somewhere, how many teams are going to be in the playoffs?
I think when we get consistent Big Ten SEC teams in the playoff, like it happens 2 or 3 years in a row, then you're going to have your other teams like, well, what about me? What about me? What about me?
I think they're going to change that before all that happens.
You think?
They see the writing on the wall.
Well, I think I could also see that we break off, and maybe it's not just football. Maybe it's football and men's basketball. Maybe they're the ones that break off. And they're their own entity, and then you have the rest of college sports as their own entity.
You're getting into a problem then, though, of how does the money get funneled into the
It goes back to everything I said. Everything about college sports continues to be yuck and gross and nasty. So I wouldn't expect this to be anything different. I think we are headed to some gross things that are going to happen.
Well, I'll say this part of it. I hate this going on. I hate the fact that we're looking at doing 2 conferences, that it's we're going to have 25 teams in each conference. I think the trueness and the history of having these conferences the way they are, the tradition, I think that's all going to get thrown out the table.
It's gone now.
Well, so I heard something pretty remarkable that, like, it wasn't earth shattering, but the way that he said it. You know, you talk about all this expansion. When you look at Oklahoma and Texas to the SEC, like, that's not really expanding, because the SEC was already getting players from Texas because we had Texas A&M. But the Big Ten going to Southern California, that's expanding.
Yeah.
That's expansion right there. So we think that we are starting to go a direction that's going to, but you talk about that tradition. We're going away from that. It's done. It's going to become a production. Essentially, like Kirk Herbstreit said, it's going to be professional football on Saturday.
Especially where the NIL comes in.
Mm-hmm.
You know.
We're going to get, I mean, I would venture to say when all this is said and done, football on Saturday will be just as good as football on Sunday.
Well, for a podcast that started out as a wrestling podcast and it's kind of transitioned over to sports, I got a feeling that we're going to talk about this NCAA football stuff for a long time.
Over and over again.
Yeah.
Well, and then when this college football game comes out next year, if you're not able to do conference realignment, they are 100% missing the mark. You remember that segment we used to do, Missing the Mark? EA Sports, you'll be missing the mark.
Well, you're right, but I was just sitting there thinking about that a while ago. It'll be like, oh, well, we'll fix the conferences on next year's edition.
Right.
You know.
Or you have to buy the expansion pack.
Yeah.
That's exactly what it'll be.
Yeah.
So
there's $100 for the game, and then another $50 for the expansion pack.
Yeah.
So this isn't on the agenda, and I think we've pretty much talked about the conference realignment
for today.
For today,
It'll come back up.
So there was a picture that was sent in our text thread about the all-time starting five, and we had 4 schools. We had Duke, Carolina, Kansas, and Villanova. Mm-hmm. I'm really bothered by that, and we haven't talked about this in great length. I think it kind of popped up. There were a few things said about it, and then it kind of went away. I'm bothered by it says all time. It doesn't say in the last 10 years. Okay, that Kentucky was left off the list. Okay, I don't know that they trump any of the 4 that are there. All right. I think it should be. I think they could have put 5 there. I think you could argue that UCLA deserves a spot on that thing. I would safely say in college basketball, those are the probably 5 or 6 blue bloods going on. Mm-hmm. There's a lot of really good teams, but there are only 5 or 6 blue bloods. So that was my first problem. Is that I don't think it was.
I think their thought process when they posted it was essentially kind of over the last 20 years or so.
But then they had Wilt Chamberlain in Kansas.
Right.
And Danny Manning.
So if you're looking at all time, Kentucky has to be over the top of Villanova.
And I 100% could have seen if it was the last 10 years, last 20 years, maybe leave Kentucky off.
Yeah.
I could see that. Sure. But you're talking, it says all time. So that's my first problem. My second problem is Villanova. You look at their lineup. It's all last decade players, mainly.
And
plus,
Ed Pickney.
And Kerry Kittles.
Yeah.
Ed Pickney and Kerry Kittles and 3 players that were in the last.
Yeah.
Like, listen, those 5 guys aren't beating all-time greats from Duke, Kentucky, Carolina, or UCLA.
Well, Carolina wasn't on there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was Duke, Carolina, Villanova.
And that was one of the arguments that I had that, old Adam Duke Muncy over here was defending. In an all-time thing, Kyrie Irving over Bobby Hurley doesn't make sense.
I also agree.
But It's like, is it college versus or pro?
No,
if you're talking about a career,
I think it's college.
then I can understand how Kyrie, because he's got the NBA championship. But if you're talking college, there's no way that Kyrie Irving was better than Bobby Hurley in college, and there's no way that Zion Williamson trumps Elton Brand over that either.
So I'm looking. I just pulled it up. It says the all-time starting five for Duke is Kyrie, J.J. Redick, Grant Hill, Zion, Christian Laettner. I'm not sure how Shane Battier's not there.
Which was another one that I brought up.
Who are you going to put him over? He's not going over Grant Hill. They play the same position.
Why can't we move Grant Hill down to the 2?
Why can't Zion be out of there?
Zion
played 1 year and did not make a Final Four.
They didn't even go to the Sweet 16, did they?
Elite 8.
They did go to the Elite 8. So I think you could argue that I don't know that Kyrie deserves to be up there over Bobby Hurley. And I hate Bobby Hurley. I'm not a Bobby Hurley guy.
I love Bobby Hurley.
As you should, as a Duke guy.
But you got to think, both of them at their top, athletically, it's not close.
But I mean,
but Bobby Hurley has 2 titles.
Yeah.
And
because Christian Laettner.
And was the driving force. Now, look, like what Bobby Hurley has that Christian Laettner don't have. He was the point guard on the team that beat the dream team in the undisclosed area. That was Bobby Hurley. That wasn't Christian Laettner.
Christian Laettner was on the dream team.
Exactly.
He was the only college player on the dream team.
Exactly.
So I'm not arguing Christian Laettner. I think he deserves to be there.
Grant Hill
deserves to be there.
JJ.
I don't know, man.
JJ Redick?
Yeah, JJ Redick.
Who's the only player I would add on that list, if we're adding anybody, would be Jay Williams.
I would probably put Jay Will over Kyrie Irving.
But
I will argue, and I'm not a Duke guy, I argue that Shane Battier deserves to be on that list.
Shane Battier was good. Not good enough for that list.
I'd argue that Grayson Allen was as good as J.J. Redick.
No. I couldn't think of his name,
No.
but yes, I was thinking him too.
No.
God, he makes me puke in my mouth. That's gross.
I'm just telling you. I hate it. Like, my stomach is upset saying that.
So who's
just
the Carolina lineup?
Just for that, the group text is getting blown up with J.J. Redick highlights from Duke now.
Well, that's okay. Dude dunked one time in his career. That's fine. So, here's another interesting thing. The all-time North Carolina lineup doesn't have a point guard. You have Michael, Vince Carter, Antoine Jameson, James Worthy, Tyler Hansborough. So I think we're thinking about it that it has to be it has to be position players. I don't think we have to put position players on there. So when you think about it that way, I think that you could make a case for more players to be on there. Now, when I'm thinking about North Carolina players,
I would put Rasheed Wallace over Hansborough.
Tyler Hansborough, he has
he's got North Carolina fans.
Yeah, I think you could potentially make the case for Sean May over Tyler Hansborough, but Tyler Hansborough's when he's kind of synonymous.
Tyler Hansborough, the vision that I have in my head.
Gerald Henderson split his nose wide open.
Yeah,
he deserved every bit of that.
And him still playing.
Right.
I mean, that was an iconic picture.
I kind of have an issue with Vince Carter being on the. I think Vince Carter's best time was in the pros over college. Fine with Antoine Jameson. Fine with James Worthy. Fine with Hansborough. Obviously, fine with Michael. I could probably see Rasheed Wallace being on there. Maybe a guy like Sam Perkins.
Wouldn't Kenny Smith make sense too?
Maybe.
Yeah.
And then you got
if
Kansas.
he was going to have a point guard, he would be the point guard, right?
I can't really argue with Kansas's
point guard would be Ty Lawson probably.
Yeah.
Ty Lawson would be good.
Or Raymond Felton.
Probably Felton.
Yeah.
Probably Raymond Felton. Kansas, can't really argue with theirs. It's Mario Chalmers, Paul Pierce, Danny Manning, Joel Embiid, and Wilt Chamberlain.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know Rafe LaFrance. And then you're like, well, if you're going to put Rafe LaFrance on, who are you going to take off?
But the point you're making is, why isn't Kentucky on this, grouped into this, for this group of four here?
Right.
Because when they put Wilt Chamberlain on Kansas's team, you open up a door to a plethora of Kentucky players that you put
That date all the way back to the 50s.
Back when you were a boy.
You put all those. You put some
Back
of
when
those together,
James-
along with somebody like Tony Delk or Travis Ford or somebody like that at point guard.
Oh, sticky fingers forward.
Or Kyle Macy or Richie Farmer at point guard. I mean, there's so many more names. As we've said with Duke and as we've said with North Carolina, I think you put a starting five together that is as good or better than any of those four.
I mean, Pat Riley was the point guard.
Especially
back
Villanova.
today, wasn't he?
Pat Riley was their point guard at the time. Yes.
And then you look at
It would be hard to do a 5 for UK. I mean,
It
there's
would,
a lot of,
because
lot of
there is
talent that's
so
come through
many-
there.
and the talking point that we have is Duke basketball was nothing prior to Coach K. Prior to 90, Duke basketball was middle of the road. So you can only go back Duke basketball about 1990.
Yeah, you
Moving
had
forward. Fair?
Oh, yeah.
You had the
100%.
one Final Four in like '86 when it was UK, Louisville, Duke, and
I mean,
whoever the other one was.
UK beat them in the championship in the 70s,
Right.
too. Late
but I
70s.
mean,
But
nobody
that wasn't
no-
Coach K there though.
Oh, no. He didn't get there till the 80s.
Yeah.
Jay
No, but-
Billis was part of his class.
Nobody of note, really.
No.
And then you look at Carolina. Carolina was good, but were they really anything before Michael came on the scene? Not really.
No.
Villanova, I mean, they got Kerry Kittles in the. And by the way, he has one of the longest faces I've ever seen on an individual. I mean, look at that dude's mug. He's got long face Kittles there.
That looks like this is about as long as Kevin Durant's foot.
I was going to say, you put Kevin Durant's foot on him. That's one funky looking dude.
But that's my biggest two problems. One is I don't think, when you put the word all time, it's hard to leave teams like Kentucky and UCLA off that list.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
And then
That's just somebody that's not a Kentucky fan that's putting that list out.
right. And then I think you could argue, and I think there could be arguments made on both sides that maybe the right five weren't picked in the starting lineup.
Wait, I didn't even see who put this out.
Sports Savages.
Sport Savages. No wonder Kentucky's not on here. It's just like old boy that you like to share
Big
to us.
Game Boomer.
Big
Dude,
Game
I talked
Boomer.
about
He
them.
puts some wacky crap out there, and you're like, what in the world? And all he wants, just like Sports Savages, is click, 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 click,
Big
click,
Game
click, click,
Boomer
click,
is
click,
better
click,
It
than
click.
works. He got it. You just gave him a shout out on our podcast.
I did. You're welcome.
Big Game Boomer.
Shout us
better
back.
than
Shout
all
us
three,
back
though.
out.
I'll send you an address for the check.
Right.
So, before we close out,
Yep.
I want to try a new segment that I thought of.
Okay.
Overrated, underrated.
Okay.
I'm going to throw some things out. You all tell me if you think it's overrated or underrated.
All just everybody at once. Just one.
No, I mean, you can go. I mean, we could, but then it'd be like, "Rah!"
That's what's good about it.
And it's random topics, right?
Well, it's going to be summer desserts. When I think of summer desserts,
Okay.
all right? So, I'll throw out my first one. Banana pudding. Overrated, underrated.
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 Overrated.
Okay? Why do you say underrated?
I don't know that there's much better than banana pudding.
Okay? Same?
Can you make it bad?
Right.
And since we have Caitlin here tonight, she makes a really good banana pudding.
Well, we're going to need one next week.
I say overrated.
Why?
The vanilla wafers is the best part. I can eat those by themselves.
Okay. All right.
Oh, banana pudding for Adam.
That sounds like a typical
West Virginia thing.
I like vanilla ice cream, like Sean and eating Ruffles.
Right. No salt potato chips.
No salt.
Oh,
No taste potato chips is what it was.
Hi, my name's Bland.
bland. So, second, homemade ice cream. Overrated, underrated.
Overrated.
I think it's overrated too.
I couldn't tell you the last time I ate it.
So overrated.
Yeah.
Overrated.
I can't. I hope my dad is not listening to this because he takes pride.
Does your dad typically listen?
No,
Okay, this will be the one episode he does.
I'm sure he will. You're probably right.
Papa Crouch, we're sorry.
See on Facebook, we're tagging him. So you need to listen to this.
No, my mom is, and she'll share it. He makes a orange crush sherbet, like during homemade. He puts it in the thing. He doesn't crank it. He's got the hit the button and
But he
goes
used to
by
crank
itself.
it.
And he puts ice in there and does the rock salt so it gets. It's just okay.
Listen, I tell people, I don't have
Overrated.
the time or the patience to wait on this ice cream to be done when I can go to the Walmarts and get me a whole quart for $2.
By the way, go to Kroger, get their private selection bourbon butter ice cream. Bourbon butter truffle ice cream.
Is it good?
It is the best ice cream, and it's private selection Kroger brand.
It has to be good because it's from the truffle hunters,
Yeah.
Right.
That's what they're trying
Does
to
it taste like bourbon?
Yes, it does have the hint of bourbon.
Yeah, I probably wouldn't like it.
All right.
Not that strong.
Well, not everybody's an alcoholic like you, Wes. And the pictures, sending a picture out there in front of his 18 bottles of
Just a
booze.
collector.
And Neil, I don't know if you noticed or not, but our social media influencer, she was getting really excited when Wes was talking about, some family ice cream recipes.
Right. She's like, I may get those recipes.
One day.
Maybe they'll be in the Crouch Family Cookbook
Oh my gosh.
that we get as a wedding gift.
I'll share that one with you. You can just put it in your cookie.
Thank you. I will. So, last, fresh fruit cobbler. Overrated, underrated.
Disgusting.
Wow.
You just mean like a regular fruit cobbler?
When I think of summer, I think automatically of peach cobbler.
Yeah, underrated.
Underrated.
I'm not a fan of cobbler.
I'm not either. I'm not either.
Why are you not a fan of cobbler?
If I had to eat a cobbler, it would be peach cobbler.
Have you not had blackberry cobbler?
I don't like blackberries.
Oh my
also
goodness
do not like
gracious!
blackberries.
Listen,
I promise you, if there's a place that's serving blackberry cobbler, I'm eating it. It doesn't matter how full I am.
no.
And yes, it's got to have vanilla ice cream
It does.
inside of it.
I will agree.
But there's nothing better in the summertime than a blackberry cobbler.
Have you tried
because
popsicles?
it's not just the blackberries. Because blackberries by themselves are good, but they're not great. But you got to put sugar in it, and when you do that, it's heaven.
A good ice cream sandwich that's got just enough crunch to it.
Blackberry cobbler would be number one for me. Cherry would be number two. And then probably peach or apple would be
See,
third.
like, I think an apple cobbler is just...
It's
an
a messy apple pie.
I was going to say, an apple pie is like Cousin Eddie. Like, it's somebody who messed up their pie. It's like, look at that, apple cobbler. Yeah, it's supposed to be, no, it's apple cobbler, obviously. Like, so, but if I'm going to eat a cobbler, it would be peach.
Get out of that, Snots.
Snots! That's me slapping Snot's hands for trying to get out of the apple cobbler. Snots is his daughter, your sister-in-law. So they have... And then, my last is going to be all-encompassing. The ice cream truck. Overrated, underrated.
Oh, underrated.
Underrated.
Oh, we've had this discussion.
Underrated.
Overrated.
Overrated.
Because, listen, for $7, the Scooby-Doo ice pop that I can get from the ice cream truck for $7, you know how many of those I can buy at the Walmarts?
It's about the experience, though.
It's not even good ice cream.
You're in the house, and you're bored, and you've already had dinner, and you're like...
And then you hear,
oh,
the Saints come marching in.
Well, I'll tell you why it's overrated to me.
It's not even good.
It's because I got to walk a quarter of a mile to get to the darn thing.
Right.
And by then, I don't
that's
wanna
when
do it.
you're going like
Oh
this.
no, they don't come down our street. They come to the corner, and you got to walk all the way to the corner. I'm not doing
Well,
that.
you need to move.
I
They
think
come right to the driveway.
I think it's overrated. Because
What's better than getting either, and we've had this discussion, what's better than having a Batman popsicle?
you mean where the eyeballs are supposed to be here and they're all like cockeyed?
At least they're chewing gum.
They're chewing gum.
Yeah, so was that thing that I attempted to chew a couple weeks ago. It was technically chewing gum.
So what's better? Batman, Ninja Turtle,
Spider-Man.
Spider-Man,
SpongeBob.
SpongeBob.
If I'm getting anything off it's going to be a Rocket Pop. That's what I'm getting if I'm getting it off the truck.
We
But
get those from the Walmart.
But they also have the ice cream sandwiches that are a little cheaper. Or they've got the drumsticks.
I like drumsticks.
The drumsticks are
are
really
Why
good.
is it
They'll
rocky
either have
drum
drumsticks
down?
or king cones.
With the chocolate on the inside.
What do y'all think about the Choco Taco?
Choco Taco.
Okay, so
So-
do you get ice cream every time that it comes by?
Every
Adam?
time. Every single
And that
time.
cost you what, about $30?
$13.50.
And is that 3? That's you and the 2 boys?
Yep.
So the girls are out on the ice cream truck?
Oh yeah, they don't.
Because does your wife take the same approach as Sean's? Like, I ain't walking out there.
She sits on the porch and watches us, and I'm like, "You want anything? No, I'm good."
My kids every
I
time
mean-
they'll hear it and they're like,
I mean, you
they
guys
turn and look at me and I'm
it
like,
cost you $70 to
right,
do
like
it.
I have to get a second mortgage on the house. like the ice cream truck, and he comes down the road, and I'm like, go on.
See, we'll be sitting.
Adam
inside.
turns around.
He's just parking in front of your house going, I ain't leaving until they come out.
Adam turns around. Neil turns around and points to the freezer and goes, "There's our ice cream truck. Get in it."
Right.
Our kids will be inside, and somehow they'll hear the Saints go marching in. Boom. One day they're going to run through the screen door.
Yeah.
And then Adam follows them out going,
Oh, absolutely. There's dancing going on. And we've been known to drive around the subdivision to see where it is and how much time we got.
So, that is our overrated, underrated
I like
segment.
that segment. I do like that segment.
So, and, moving forward, it could be players, it could be teams, it could be movies, music. No really topic is off limits.
Wedding songs.
Wedding songs. Father-daughter dance songs.
Mm-hmm.
Wedding cake flavors.
Oh. How many layers to a wedding?
Right. Bridesmaid dress colors.
What season to get married?
Ooh, seasons.
Mm-hmm.
Indoor or outdoor?
Yeah.
Destination vacations, I know for a fact.
No.
Caitlin doesn't like those.
Hate those.
You don't like the destination wedding?
It's too much money.
That's cheaper than a real wedding, though.
"Shit, we're not a real wedding. I wish I'd have done it."
I 100% wish I would have
Shelly,
done that.
if you're listening, Wes would like to renew his vows. You all go on a destination wedding. The Moco Four Horsemen will join you. I'm actually a licensed
Ordained minister.
Oh, I've already told Allie that you're hired.
So,
I'm doing the flower guy stuff.
With the fanny pack?
Oh, yes. Oh, yeah. Please tell me you've seen the video. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Oh, yeah. Yeah, and I get to pick the song.
Are you okay with this?
For my wedding?
Well, I mean, who else's wedding will be talking?
Allie's, obviously.
Yeah, you don't do it for me. He's going to walk me down the aisle.
well,
And throw flowers.
I'll be the
One-handed because I'm holding you with one arm and throwing flowers with the other.
So I mean, basically here on From Corner to Corner podcast, there's no topic off limits, and occasionally we do play Love Connection, and I think there's a love connection.
I mean, I don't see why we can't just put a slash and say From Corner to Corner / wedding planners.
Wedding plan. I mean, we've planned weddings. We're good.
We can do it all.
Can do it all.
Jack of all trades.
That is one reason why we are the #1 podcast that comes out of Mount Sterling at 3 a.m. on Saturday mornings.
You're right. You're right.
Beautiful.
Undisputed.
No doubt.
If you want to
No
dispute
diggity.
Black Street. Play on, playa.
24 days.
SummerSlam is coming.
Man, what a car ride that's going to be.
What a...
And not wait. I think we're listening to this episode on the way down.
By the way, Whataburger is now in Nashville. I'm more excited about eating Whataburger than I am going to SummerSlam.
It is a little out of the way.
I don't care. I'll drop you off at the stadium. I'll go get Whataburger.
How far out of the way we talking?
Might be like a 20-minute drive.
Oh, that ain't nothing.
Oh, okay.
You're talking about.
I mean, you're talking about Orlando professional driver.
You're talking about. Listen, he's more from the hills than I am. I lived 20 minutes out of town when I grew up. So
You
if
had
you
to drive
wanted,
35 to a Walmart where I was.
like, if you wanted to get anything that wasn't Mama cooking,
Well, maybe we'll get lucky and it'll be close to the Top Golf
The new hotel.
or the new hotel that we had to buy.
Right, I was
Top Golf.
Top Golf is close to the stadium.
Okay.
I've called King Henry. He hadn't got back with me yet, but I think he's going to go Top Golf with us.
Nice.
I like it.
Nice.
And John Chena.
John Chena.
Yeah.
You have a big mouth, John Chena.
Yeah.
And Baptista.
Baptiste.
No, not Baptista. It's Babatista. How many brain cells you have, Babatista? Oh, 21. That's not many.
John
not
Chena.
many.
Santino Morella is fantastic.
Yeah, he's a classic. Well, another great show, guys, and I look forward to next week.
Stay safe.
I pledge allegiance to the podcast brought to me by the Moco Four Horsemen, for which I rely upon my weekly entertainment, for the love of all things fun, with opinions, facts, and jokes aplenty. Just like Sex Panther Cologne, 60% of the time, we are right every time. Amen.